Hi, I'm Warren Sprouse. You're on the Bible Forum. Have you ever heard the phrase, knowledge is power? A week or so ago, the charter school organization entitled the Knowledge is Power program, commonly known as KIPP, K-I-P-P, announced that it would be retiring the slogan. The slogan was, work hard, be nice. You see, school officials believe the phrase is counterproductive to abolishing systemic racism. How, you say? Well, Richard Barth, CEO of Knowledge is Power Foundation, said, over the last few weeks, we have all been working hard to turn words into action, recognizing that there's still much more work to be done and eliminate any practice at KIPP that furthers systemic racism, anti-blackness, inequities experienced by our students, our alumni, families, teachers, and staff. Therefore, we axed the slogan because it diminishes the significant effort required to dismantle systemic racism. What's the point here? Well, according to the CEO, the slogan places value on being compliant and submissive, supporting the illusion of meritocracy, and does not align with our vision of students being free to create the future they want. Did you react to that as I did? When did students get to decide what future they want? I mean, you can say, I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an Indian chief, but I mean, the future in terms of values and the way you live and that sort of thing. These are students. They're still children. They're still learning about what is right, good, and productive. And they're not doing that in a laboratory where they get to decide what's what. It's life. What's wrong with being compliant in a classroom where everyone is 8 years of age? Not to mention submissive. These are not only good qualities, these are essential qualities. Now, the reality here is that the founder wanted something that didn't sound so, well, white. It's called white flight or white guilt. It all stems from sending children off to be raised, monitored, structured, taught, cultivated by surrogate parents. You know, daycare workers that you really don't know. School teachers steeped in philosophies you've never heard, nor would like to if you did. Strangers educated by people and institutions intent on destroying the American dream. They would deny that because they have an alternative dream. Strangers who have no skin in the game where this particular child is concerned. They don't have to live with them after they've programmed them. It's a known fact that our educational system is deliberately liberal, meaning philosophically anti-Christian, meaning rules, laws, governing principles are relative to situations. They're not absolute in every regard. So Johnny only has to sit down when he wants to, or when he realizes how important it is. Watch these children as they enter the employment market. I have. Employers can no longer simply tell them what to do. Employers can no longer hold them to strict rules. Employers can no longer fire them for indolence. That's laziness for all you public school educated folks. You're lazy, but unless you do something really bad, or unless the company can justify reducing the payroll or something else, they're stuck with you. Of course, the proverbial you will mess up sooner or later. Consistent tardiness, leaving early, unproductive, disrespectful, you name it. In the end, the company pays. And that cost is passed along to you, the consumer. And those parents who raised this person, they complain about shoddy service and high prices. I have a part-time job. I work from noon until 6 p.m. and I drive a shuttle. Nobody knows where I am or what I'm doing except what I tell them. At the end of the day, the last hour or so, very often I have nothing to do. I could go home, nobody would notice. I wait until 6 o'clock. I've been encouraged by my supervisors, both of them, my immediate supervisor and his supervisor, that when there's nothing to do and it's 9:45, 10 of, something like, go ahead. And after 4 years, I'm slowly starting to feel more comfortable about walking out at 5 of or 8 of or something of that nature. But it's still an uncomfortable thing to do. Young people don't have that problem. That's how the culture has changed in 70 years. Dr. Voddie Baucham is a black man. He's the Dean of Theology at African Christian University in Lusaka, Zambia. He recently gave some words of warning regarding the Black Lives Matter organization on Glenn Beck's radio program. According to The Blaze, Baucham cautioned against the organization, noting that people are being labeled as racist for not agreeing with all that the organization stands for and the actions the group is taking. He says, what worries me is that there are so many Christians who are not taking that stand. He said, we have to separate this movement from the issues. I know that Black Lives Matter is a phrase that's part of an organization. It's a trademark phrase. It's a phrase designed to use black people. Baucham saying that, not me. That phrase, he says, dehumanizes black people because it makes them pawns in a game that has nothing whatsoever to do with black people and their dignity, and has everything to do with divisive agendas that are bigger than black people. That's why he says, I'm not going to use the phrase, because I love black people. I love being black. The dean went on to say, I don't have to prove anything to you. This is all about me being right with God. Ultimately, Baucham believes that the Black Lives Matter is dangerous and vicious for trying to use black people to enforce an agenda. Baucham also encouraged people to read through the organization's agenda and belief statement in order to truly understand what the group is calling for. And so if I'm really concerned, he says, about the issues in the black community, and I am, then I have to refuse and I have to repudiate the organization because they stand against that for which I am advocating. Baucham has likened the Black Lives Matter movement to a religion that's promising salvation outside of God and the gospel. He says, and unfortunately, there are many Christians who are sounding like they're satisfied with all of that. Here's a man, a black man, who gets it. Strip away the emotionalism of a slogan, and what do you get? You've seen it on TV. You get violence, property destruction, raging emotions against anything that isn't truly black, meaning those people of color who are part of the establishment are traitors. The so-called plight of the black man is in that he was forcibly brought to this country in chains in order to work for white men. That plight was dire in most cases, and the work was hard. All this took place over 400 years ago, and it continued until 1865, 158 years ago. But it wasn't until 1965 that they had all the rights of citizenship in this country. For the last 5 or 6 generations, people of color have been legally equal. In all but the die-hard southern states, people of color have been treated as equals, each generation finding more and better opportunities. There are still some who refuse to integrate into our culture, preferring to live the same as did their forebears. But for those with vision and discipline, no field of endeavor has been closed to them. And with just about every society on earth, the more you adapt to your surroundings, the more you will be received and the more you will enjoy of its benefits. It's a matter of choice, not law. Character, not chance. Isabel Wilkerson writes in the New York Times Magazine, she's an accomplished author, a black woman. She writes, "America is an old house. Like old houses, we can never declare the work over. Wind, flood, drought, and human upheavals batter a structure that is already fighting whatever flaws were left unattended in the original foundation. When you live in an old house, you may not want to go into the basement after a storm to see what the rains have wrought. Choose not to look, however, at your own peril. The owner of an old house knows that whatever you're ignoring will never go away. Whatever is lurking will fester, whether you choose to look or not." Don Lemon interviewed Terry Crews on Black Lives Matter. Terry Crews was drafted by the NFL's Los Angeles Rams in 1991. After several years playing pro football, Crews retired and pursued an acting career, which took flight on the big screen in the 2000s. America's Got Talent, the champions in 2019. CNN host Don Lemon and Black Lives Matter movement is not about the lives of all black Americans, he said during an interview with actor Terry Crews. Crews is skeptical of the organization's inconsistency regarding black-on-black crime, as well as his political motives, sparring with Lemon about the true stance of the Black Lives Matter movement. The actor, who is black, is under fire from the left for recent tweets he posted critical of the Black Lives Matter movement. On June 30, Crews was warned of the group's potential to spread racial divisiveness. He warned of their potential to spread racial divisiveness. He said, "If you are a child of God, you are my brother and sister. I have a family of every race, creed, and ideology. We must ensure Black Lives Matter does not morph into Black Lives Better," he wrote on Twitter. When appearing at CNN Tonight, Crews defended his position but was repeatedly talked over by Lemon, who acted as a spokesman for the anti-police Black Lives Matter movement. Lemon told the Brooklyn Nine-Nine star that he had stepped in it by expressing his opinion on Twitter. The CNN host said, "I have a skin that's tough as an armadillo. Maybe you should adapt that." Well, Crews refused to relent. He says other black people who are talking about working with other whites and other races are being viewed as sellouts or called Uncle Toms. You start to understand that you're now being controlled. You're not being treated as loved. You're actually being controlled. Someone wants to control the narrative. The TV star warned that he believes the current Black Lives Matter movement is bordering on demanding supremacy over equality, and complained of its dangerous self-righteousness. He also attempted to point out that he sees as an inconsistency with regard to a lack of outrage when black people, including children, are killed by other black people. He asked why the Black Lives Matter movement does not focus on disproportionate black-on-black homicides. But he was interrupted by Lemon, who said, "What does that have to do with equality?" Crews said he believes that the black community should hold itself accountable for that kind of violence. "It's got to be all Black Lives Matter," the actor said. The Black Lives Matter movement was started because it was started about police brutality, Lemon responded. "If you want all Black Lives Matter movement that talks about gun violence in communities, include black communities, then you start that movement and give it a name. But that's not what the Black Lives Matter is about." And while Lemon insisted the Black Lives Matter movement is focused only on police brutality, Crews corrected him. He said, "But when you look at the organization, Police brutality is not the only thing they're talking about. Now, I agree that's not what the Black Lives Matter movement is about. Black Lives Matter is about police brutality and about criminal justice. It's not about what happens in communities when it comes to crime. Black on black, people who live near each other. Black people kill each other, same as whites. 80-something% of white people are killed by white people, Lemon said, before quickly ending the interview. If I'm truly your equal, I can discuss my concerns with you. But if I'm not, all my concerns are perceived as threats. How's that?